always wondering, how do I start the video? Hello, guys. That always seems to come to mind. Hello, guys. Well, until that changes. Okay, this is a little quick tutorial again. We're going to work on blending, how to blend. Eventually, we're going to start doing like full paintings. But for now, in a beginner's class, there's so many little things you need to learn and to practice on. So if you would, after some of these little classes, if you get a scrap piece of wood like I've got right here, you can paint over it umpteen times. This is where I did that sample thing. But if you practice, honestly, you just get better at it. And then the times that maybe the flow is just not happening that day, your head wants to do it, but your heart's saying, nah, gotta do laundry, gotta do this, gotta do that. There are times you're gonna mess up and it's gonna turn out like crap. And what I used to do is I'd hide my stuff or throw it away. I didn't want my kids to see it. I didn't want my husband to see it. It was so silly. I don't know why I acted that way. I had, I think, a little too much of my heart into the situation. Okay, so eventually we're going to get to full-size acrylic painting. Like, I'm not going to turn that around because I'm hopefully going to edit this right. But on something like this, it's not quite realistic, okay? So it really depends on the style that you end up with. If you're going to do realistic painting or still life painting, which this is still life, your style will develop. You don't have to paint like I do. Once you know some pointers and feel comfortable with them, your style will show up. And hopefully if you're on Facebook, you can look me up and let me see your progress. I would love to see that. Anyway, okay, any noise in the background, it's the cats. Just ignore them, or the dog. Okay, so for instance, I could have just done this head of lettuce in just solid green, put a little highlight on it and leave it be. But in my past videos, like I have said, the more you have the patience to enhance something you're working on, the better it looks. So highlighting more here and adding not just green but blues and yellows made this head of lettuce just, for me, look better. Same thing with the grapes. The grapes have several colors in them, a dark purple, a light purple, and a red. You can see that tint of red on there. Same thing with the carrots. They have a little tint of yellow, orange, and red. So when you're doing a painting, again, you can enhance it to the point that you're through, you're done, and leave it be. Enjoy it or give it away as a gift. Okay, so today, some of my friends saw my ornament wreath. I don't have it handy right now, but I was doing a lot of practice on blending again. Sometimes I get myself all in a hurry to work up something, and my shading and my blending and putting in shadows and highlights lacks a little bit. So I had to make myself go back to practicing blending and shading and highlighting. So that's what we're going to do today. Plus a little tip on the background. So we're going to use a black paint for the background, and I'm using this 1-inch brush to paint the background. It's just going to be a solid black, maybe with a little gray flowing through. But when you are fixing to paint, always wet your paintbrush, and then so those bristles are wet, and then dry it off. so the paintbrush is just damp. And instead of using my palette, I'm just going to squirt some black paint on there. And when you are doing a background, you want to try, unless you're doing something fancy, you know, because anything goes almost in this day and age, but you want to try keeping your strokes going the same direction. And like I said, this is not a great board. You can see all the ridges, but that just makes it a little bit more interesting. To get in those ridges, I'm going to have to go the opposite way. Now let's just go ahead and do just a little bit of white. No main reason for this, just to, again, make it look interesting. I'm not even going to clean my brush from the black paint. Get it in the ridges and then go the same direction. Okay, I don't want to lose my black, so I'm going to rinse my brush and get a lot of that white off. Dry it, and be sure when you're drying your paintbrush, of course I just use paper towels, but when you're drying your paintbrush, you want to dry it, of course, to get those bristles dry and not full of water, but you also want to make sure this area here is dry, because if you push it down on the paper towel, it's going to catch those drips. There's nothing like cleaning your brush and going to work on something and a big old drip gets on there, which you can just blot it off and let it dry. And what I do is I keep my old cup right on top of my paper towels, so it keeps the paper towels in place, and then you're not chasing it all over the table every time you wipe your brush off. Another little tidbit. Okay, and that is drying. So I'm just going to straighten up some of those lines, go on down into the black, it's still wet, go on down here to this gray. And because I don't really want to see quite where the brush strokes stop in the gray going into the black, I'm going to rinse my brush off and dry it. And I'm just going to lightly brush over it. Just kind of makes it a little interesting looking. Now you can see, hopefully you can see where the brush strokes have stopped. So to get rid of that, I'm going to use one of my, what I call my pouncing brushes. Wet the bristle, make sure it doesn't have any water on it, and I am just going to pounce where that gray meets that black. Very similar to the way we do when we're blending. It's kind of a dance with the brush. Do the same thing down here. And this paint is barely wet now. It's starting to dry. But let's see if you can see this. There's still a little bit brush strokes right there. I want to just dance it off. All I'm doing is, my brush is grabbing some of that black and going over that gray. And you can do a background so many different ways. You can use a sea sponge. I used to use that a lot. and sponge the background with several colors, oh, it would turn out so pretty. Matter of fact, if you're ever doing something that looks like a granite background with the veining, I would suggest you start off with a base coat on your background and then go back with a couple of colors using a sea sponge. But be sure that sea sponge is wet, or excuse me, damp, and of course wrung out really well. And then you can sea sponge a background and you can get those just beautiful blends going on. And once you add veining to it, it ends up looking like a piece of granite. That is fun. I haven't done that in a while. We may try that one day in class. Okay, that'll work for a little practice thing. All right, I think it is dry now, dry enough. And again, this textured wood is not really great. Probably should have picked out of my little bin something smoother. Well, we're gonna go with the challenge here. Okay, so we're gonna do a couple of Christmas ornaments, basically. Plain Jane Christmas ornaments that are enhanced. But this is gonna show you how to blend again. And we're going to continually learn how to blend throughout all the different classes. You'll be using that blending technique, highlighting, shadowing. Those are the main techniques that I use when I'm putting a painting together. So for now, we're gonna make it real simple. And by the way, you don't have to know how to draw to paint. Later in future videos, I'm going to show you how to, how I apply a pattern of something I want to, I don't want to freehand draw, I want that pattern. And I'll show you how to apply a pattern using graphite paper to your background. So for now, I'm going to use the end of this bottle, and it's going to make me a nice, I think I'll use the big black one. And I'm using just a regular old number 2 pencil. And I'm going to put a circle maybe you can see it. I'm not sure if you can or not. Just did a basic circle, nice big circle. And my second ornament is going to be about right there, and it's basically going to be underneath the edge of the first ornament. Now, let's see if you can see that there. So all it is 2 circles, one overlapping the other one. We're going to start this first one up here as a red ornament, of course. My favorite colors of Christmas, red and green, because I'm an old lady. And most old ladies love that traditional color. Get that paint off there. Okay, because we're working with a black background, first off, I am going to do put a little bit of paint of red on my palette. That's going to be, I'm going to mix white with that to make it pink. This red is going to be the darker color of the ornament. And that's going to be the lighter shade. So I basically did 3 puddles of paint. Of course, to cover that black background, we're going to use a little bit of white in that red paint. To create a dark red, I'm going to use a little bit of black, but anytime you're using black to mix in with another color, always put it off to the side and then grab you a little bit of paint, because black is so strong. Once you've put too much in your mixing colors together and you've put too much black, you just got to start over, because there's no return. You'll end up putting, I've done it before, you end up trying to put like more red and more red to lighten it, and you just, at that point, you're just wasting paint. You just need to start over and do a new puddle. I'm going to grab a little bit of water on my brush while I'm mixing that darker color. I think I want it just a smidge darker. Again, I love to paint with contrast. So that's basically almost a maroon color, and you can see the difference between this color and that one there. All right, rinsing my brush, getting a little water on it. See, that's what I'm talking about when it's a little bit of water. Because white is always thick. So to make your paints to flow on your project, add just a tad bit of water. You'll find when you're working your project, and if it's just getting so difficult to blend or so difficult to cover a certain spot, it's just like way too much effort. You need to stop and water down your paint a little bit, or do a brand new paint palette. And this red is not too thick, but I'm going to add a little bit of water with my brush. Just a tad bit more. All right, my palette is ready at this point. I am going to add just a little bit of white and water that down. I need some pure white. Now my water in my cup is pretty dirty, so it's going to make that white kind of a dirty color for a minute. Not a big deal. Stirring in a little bit of water to get that white to flow a little bit more on my project when I'm ready to use it. The brush I'm going to use starting off to paint that first ornament is a round, it is a number 5 round brush. Again, low Cornell brushes are excellent. Lang Nickel is, I think that's it. They are very good brushes as well. Papillon, I'm not sure if they still make those anymore, but if you can find Papillon, they're good brushes as well. All right, so the first coat I'm going to do to cover this background, because it's dark, again, just in case you've missed my other video, if I try to cover this background and with just straight red on top of that dark background, it's not going to work out very well. It's always going to look like black is trying to bleed through and be all splotchy. So add white to your color and you get a little bit better coverage. And by using good brushes, and again, keep in mind my board is pretty rough, but using good brushes, I get a little bit of paint, dab it on the surface, and then when I press, I'm pressing where the side of this brush is laying on that pencil mark. So if I press, I can get pretty much on that pencil mark. And then I go back and with small strokes, fill it in. Again, get some paint on your brush. I usually touch the surface, and then when I'm getting close to the line, I just press and let the bristles do the work. See, when you press, that bristle is spreading out and if you land it just right, it's going to get on the edge of that circle. Okay, let's just paint this in for time's sake. I am still looking to use a good editor for my tutorials, but for now I don't have something to speed things up, so I will hurry and paint this. These are just short little strokes with a number 5 round brush. Works out so nicely. And again, this is a pretty rough surface, but I'm turning the board around so I can get a better angle and press the bristles down, let them do the work, and catch that pencil mark so I get a nice edge. If it's not perfect, it doesn't really matter. This is practice work. Just little quick strokes. Again, retouch it, press down the bristles, and they're going to catch that pencil mark. Oh, I should have gotten a smoother board. Oh well. We can paint on anything almost. This year I started painting on rocks. I've never done that before. It was because one of the great-granddaughters was coming over for a day, and I didn't have any canvases or scrap wood at the time for her to paint on, and she loves to paint. She's 5 years old. So I was looking on Pinterest to get some ideas, and sure enough, one of those rock paintings popped up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have got a backyard full of rocks. And so we started painting that day on rocks, and it has stuck. Matter of fact, it has stuck so well that my son is having this huge garage sale again with some friends of his. They're all getting together, and it's a big garage sale this weekend. And he came by the other day to drop off something, and he grabbed some of my painted rocks to sell. The last big garage sale they had, he pretty much convinced me that they would sell. I didn't think they would, and sure enough they did. I was wrong. Okay, so while that pink is drying, I'm going to start a palette for the green ornament. Three dots of green. Oh, I hate it when that happens. We always call those paint boogers. Okay. Let's get that out of there because you can't use it. We're going to use a dark green, so again, put the black on the side. Grab your stir brush. I use just an old scruffy brush. Grab up a little bit of black paint. It's not very much on there. You're going to stir it in. Touch it with a little bit of water till you get the color that you want. I need mine a lot darker than that. So I grabbed a little bit more black. And I need a little bit more water. That green is thick. The consistency, it's hard for you to see this on camera, I know. But the consistency that I always look for basic painting is a thick gravy. Or I would say a gravy on the loose side, if that makes any sense. Okay, that's a nice dark green. Now we're going to do a light green. This is going to cover up that background of that black, adding a little water to it as well. See the water? And that's a nice consistency right there to work with. We're just going to leave that green like it is. I will add just a little bit of water to it because it is kind of thick. It's a learned method, guys, how much water to put, how much not to put. Because if you put too much water, of course you can't really work with it that well. And you begin to lose the color pigment the more water you add. So there is my palette for the green ornament. I am going to use that same round, nice thick brush, if you can see it. It's a nice number 5 round brush. Love working with these. And I'm going to use that light green, and I'm going to cover up this ornament. Now, what else can I talk about while I do this? I will remind you again how to let your brush do the work for you. If your hand is shaking, don't worry about it. I just got through with a cup of coffee, almost through with one. But again, you're going to fill your brush with a little bit of paint. A touch right there. My pencil mark is right here. I'm going to press down just where I can see that paint is grabbing that pencil edge. And if you go outside the line like I just did, just make it a little bigger. So the rock painting took off after that day. I started whipping up a few. My son had come over to, I think he was fixing the back fence. Couple of the panels or pickets had needed to be replaced, and he picked me up some wood, and he's a good son, and he came over and he put them up there. And he saw the rocks sitting on my dining room table. I was letting them dry. And he, man, that kid's my greatest fan. He's like, Mom, oh my gosh, I love these. Nah, 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 nah. He said, we need to put them in the garage sale. I'm like, son, there's no way anybody's going to buy rocks. Come on. And he's like, Mom, I'm telling you, they're going to buy them. And sure enough, they did. He reached out to me a day or two later after the garage sale had been going on. They had it going on all weekend. And he said, there was a lady wanting to know if you could do the hey chicken. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess I could. So I went out back and found a larger rock, because I have, like, where I live, there's nothing, we live on rock. A whole lot of broken up rock. And I'm amazed my garden grows as well as it does on top of all this rock. And I know how to draw a hey chicken to save my life. I have done a couple of those on canvases before, but I used a pattern. So I just made a smaller pattern off my computer, applied the pattern, and it turned out pretty cute. So he's hoping, after all these weeks have passed, he is hoping that the lady comes back and buys the hey chicken. Okay, I'm almost done here. Again, I got a little paint on there. I'm pressing next to that red. Slow and easy. And I know it's going to probably sound crazy to a beginner painter, but one of the other things that will help you is if you hold your breath. Yep. If you hold your breath for just a minute when you're doing something real close, it works out nicely. Okay, we've got them finally done. I probably need to get an edit and speed that part up. All right, let's see, is that red? That red's pretty well dry. All right, I'm gonna go over the red one more time with the pink, because I really want good coverage on that. And you don't have to go right at the edge, this go around, unless you see some of the pencil, which I'm seeing it. But you can tell, if you're a beginner painter, your first coat's probably your hardest. Then after that, it goes a lot smoother on your second coat. But you can tell by adding white to your paint, yes, it changed the color, but we're going to fix that. But what it did was it covered that black background. A lot of folks, let's see if I can get that edge there a little bit. A lot of folks I have seen in the past paint their main item on their surface that they're working on, and then they go back with the background color later. If that works for you, do it. That has never worked for me. It seems to stand out to me like a puzzle piece. You know how a puzzle always has an edge that you can tell? Yeah. So I'd rather do my background, let it dry, and then apply my subject on there. Okay. That one second coat is going to do just fine, covering that black. Now let's do the same thing with the green again. Load your brush. One of the other tips too is try very, very hard not to get your paint all the way up here. There is a name for this and I can't think of it at the moment right now. I want to say fennel, but that's not it. But you don't want paint up here. If you're ever in a big hurry and you get, paint covered completely, just stop and rinse your brush real good. You always want to try to keep your paint about halfway up the bristles. Now there are times when I'm working with the skinny brush that it'll just be covered in paint. But I know that timing of, in other words, it's going to start drying on there. I've got to get this rinsed off. Because once that paint gets inside that silver cylinder, it's almost never going to come back out. And when it finally dries inside there, what it's going to do is it's going to cause your bristles to spread open. So this will no longer be a nice tip. It'll be, let's see here. It'll eventually be like this, where it's just no good anymore. Not for, this is great for pouncing or blending or stirring paint, but it's not great for getting the edges anymore. All right. So we've got the light paint of the green. We're just going to go over this real quick, just so there's no black showing. And I might be a little bit too picky in this area. If you're happy with the first coat of it, then carry on with your project. But it's a good habit to be in, to have a good coverage. And if you notice, I just turned my project. Now there are going to be times you're going to work on a project you can't turn. I used to do wall murals, and you can't turn a wall. And I'm trying to think of another heavy surface that I had worked on before and I couldn't turn it. Well, the large sofa-sized canvases you can't really turn very well. So you just have to turn your body and you have to turn your hand and get the angle you need to be in to try to get the edges nice. All right, that's got to dry. Rinsing off the brush, drying it, making sure it's dry here. And we're going to let that dry.